Welcome to another DragonLance Saga Dungeon Mastering 101 episode. It is Palast Frost Cult 15th. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to discuss, I'm going to continue my Dragonlance gaming series all about dungeon mastering. Today we're going to be talking specifically about the world and, the lore of a world. I clearly did not update my notes. Which is a bit frustrating. We're going to be talking about making and setting work at the table in this world and making the setting work at the table in this world and lore episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and you can support the channel by becoming a patron on Patreon or a member on YouTube. You can even pick up Dragonlance Media using my affiliate links. All those links are in the description below. All right. Hey, Corey, how you doing, man? So the basic idea is that world building in and of itself solely exists to serve play, right? Because no one's sitting around and reading the novel of the setting, unless, of course, it's Dragonlance. But most people's campaign settings, they're meant for the game of Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, tabletop role-playing game you play. It's not meant for this long-winded, sort of narrative world. It's supposed to be a shared experience. And so the worlds in and of themselves are not built to be admired as much as they're built to be actually used. And there's an important difference there, because if it's admired, then there's already totality to it. You have like Middle Earth, for example. There's a bunch of different ages, and all of the things that need to happen within those ages to propel it through history has already occurred. And so there's not a whole lot where you can go in and make world-changing events occur. Whereas in the Dragonlance campaign setting, you can be a part of those world-changing events, just like you could in Lord of the Rings or something. But unless you're ignoring all of the established lore and going into the Age of Mortals at the very end of the Age of Mortals, the world is kind of already framed in. There's not a lot of changes that you can make without breaking that world building lore and then having it sort of snowball down the line. And so it's always important to make sure whenever you're going to be bringing in some sort of campaign setting or playing in an established playground that ultimately it's able to be used. And I think this is why some people really do shy away from playing in Dragonlance outside of established modules or something like that. Just sort of free-form campaigning. I have no problem with it personally, but I know some people, they get a little intimidated by, well, how much information do I need to know? And how am I supposed to know when the best time is to play in this era or what era to play in? And, there seems to be a lot of concern, especially if you're having players that are up on their Dragonlance lore. They're going to know the mistakes you're making. And so it can be intimidating to DMs who maybe don't understand all the lore, and it might just be prohibitive in that case. And it really shouldn't be. You should feel as a dungeon master that you can go in and do whatever you want, because that's the purpose of having a campaign setting, is that the setting exists for you to explore stories within. Hey, Ryan, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Julian, what up? Used to think the world of Krynn was small, but there's so much going on you never get bored. Yeah, and it's anything but small, at least in my opinion. Lore that does not influence the player's decisions, emotions, or consequences is decorative at best and distracting at worst. And this is where I have hang-ups. Because when I have a player coming in to play in the Dragonlance campaign, for example, and I'm using Dragonlance because one, it's a Dragonlance channel, and two, it's a perfect example for talking about world building and lore in Dungeons & Dragons campaign. So when players come in with playing characters and they don't know anything about the lore and they ignore everything about the lore and they just expect it to be just like Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk or any other prime material bland campaign world that their previous dungeon masters have ever run. And the idea in that is I can be whatever I want and everyone will just accept me as I am. I'm going to play a tiefling and not expect to be shouted at and have spears thrown at me because I look like a demon. Or I'm going to play a draconian and not expect to have people looking at me like a monster because the War of the Lance just happened and that's what they are. Or being a gnome and pretending like everyone should welcome you around technology and all your inventions, or being a kender and thinking that everyone should just be nice to you all the time and be upset, genuinely upset that they, call you a thief or try to keep you away from them. Like, there are reasons why the lore exists, and if you don't play into that, then it becomes just pointless decoration that no one is paying attention to. So why is it even there in the first place? It's part of what makes a campaign setting interesting. And so, another wonderful example in 5th edition, there's tons of casting classes. Well, are they a part of the Towers of High Sorcery, the Orders of High Sorcery, the Wizards of High Sorcery? And even if you're a bard casting above 3rd level magic user spells, are you a part of the Orders of High Sorcery? Because if you're not going to have the organizations and the factions within the world applied to your game, why do they exist? And a lot of people can see this as gatekeeping, I suppose, but it's really what makes the world interesting. Otherwise, it's just any other world out there, and it might as well not be Dragonlance. You're playing something else. And that's okay too. But the point of playing in a campaign setting is to lean into the tropes of the setting, right? All right, so a dungeon master's goal is not to explain the world to their players through exhaustive monologues. It's to help make the world felt through the actions. And so instead of me saying, everyone really doesn't like all of you Kender running around, and, you as the player playing a Kender, just know that everyone's going to hate you, but then you never really play back on that, or you never really pay it forward. Instead, I just let the players do what they want, and the world reacts to them appropriately in world. And that's how a DM should do it. So again, if you're playing a different campaign world, then the world's, sort of norms are going to be different, but just make sure that whatever tropes you have, whatever decisions or emotions that are being made are being reacted to relevantly based on the world building that is existing in that campaign setting. And that's really what this episode is all about. So I've got 7 different principles that I want to talk to with all of that in mind. To sort of help. Let's see, you're starting a Tolada's campaign this month. It'll start in Ansalon and travel to Tolada's. Super stoked. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I bet that's going to be fun. Tolada's is way different culturally and everything. All right, so principle number 1. Lore is a tool, not a lecture. Players rarely engage with lore when it's delivered as exposition. So you need the information becomes meaningful only when it answers questions that the players already care about. So for example, in the campaign that I just ran on Saturday, I had Mina, the goddess of tears, interject into a sort of like a metaphorical dream sequence because Morgian, the god of disease, sort of upset the balance by overtly controlling characters and characters' decisions. And so Mina came in, as she is wont to do in the 5th Age, as a goddess, to help and support those who are despairing or feeling isolated and alone. She came in to help Kithris, the character that was missing his mother and tormented by what is going to happen to her and what does this mean to me. So the goddess stepped in the same way that Morgian stepped in and corrupted Lehi's the character Lehi. Mina came in and stepped in and comforted Kithris and helped sort of bring closure to that. So instead of going in a long rant about, well, this is the Mina, the goddess of tears, this is all of her history, this is why she's doing what she's doing, and this is how she got to be this place, and this is Morgian, the god of disease, and here's all the reasons why he's doing what he... No, I just have the world do the explaining for me. I don't have to give those monologues because the actions of the gods or in the decisions that the characters are making in those reactions that the gods are having inform the lore of the world for me. And then the players feel like they're a part of the established lore rather than sitting on the outside being lectured to about the lore. It's just another really great way of doing it. Hey, Chris, thanks for tuning in. Okay, so effective lore does a couple of things. It explains danger, it justifies opportunity, it reveals consequence, and it deepens choice. So lore is supposed to help players wrap their arms around their characters and the world itself that their characters inhabit. And I think Dragonlance does a fantastic job of this if the players are paying attention. If they don't, then it's pointless, right? So if you're a Nidar dwarf, well, what mountain range do you come in from? Because that's going to inform the culture that you're around. If you're, right outside of Thorbarden in the Kalkis, you're probably going to have animosity toward the mountain dwarves, the Hylar. You're probably going to not get along very well with all the other races that are in that area. I mean, you're going to have to be dealing with ogres and goblins on a regular, but you're also going to have to, depending on the era, dark knights, or you're going to have issues with the Quillenesti elves, or, there's going to be all sorts of things that are going to be informing your experience. Flint Fireforge hated gully dwarves. He was, he really hated Kender too, until Tasselhoff came around. And then he just pretended to hate Tasselhoff, and he probably did hate him sometimes. But he was informed by the world. His life experience and the culture and region that he was raised in informed his personality and the choices that he made throughout his life. And then that extrapolated out to the campaign that his character went on. I try to give all of the players that play in my campaigns the same type of depth and background of setting. You have to tell me where you're from. I need to know the racial justifications for you choosing your class so that I can fold in not only the choices that you're giving me, like, the whys of your playing character choices, but also you're going to be informed by how you're building out these basic building blocks. I don't want players to build background too in-depth, because that's what my job is through the game, is to set up options of players to discover background and build on it. If you come out with it already established, it may not be tied into the world. It may be completely out of lore, and it may just be too filled in for me to play with and give you some sort of context in the world with your character. And I really like to pull on people's backgrounds and the choices they make throughout the campaign to create a totality of fitting into the world. And that's what it's talking about. So when they're saying explains danger, well, why is walking into Naraka going to be dangerous during the War of the Lands? Well, because there's frickin' dragon armies there. It's the lore. It's the campaign setting. That's why it's dangerous there. What opportunities are justified by going to the monument of the dragon over in Foghaven Vale, and the tomb of Huma? Like, what is the point of that? Well, you could learn some, depending on the era, some very incredibly important things about dragonlances, or you might actually find a silver dragon, or you might find dragonlances, or find where they can be forged. I mean, there's all sorts of different reasons that justify opportunities if you follow through with the lore. The lore can reveal consequences to things. There always has to be some semblance of balance in the world. Whenever one side of evil or good rises in too much power or prominence, the other side has to come up and try to tamp it down. So you can have evil campaigns where you have good characters or good world events that are sort of tipping the scales. And then, of course, understanding the lore and being a part of the world building deepens your choices, like I had mentioned before. Informed by the character's background, the race's background, their biases that may exist, and the region that you were born in, all of that is going to inform all of the choices that you make. So if lore does not change how players act, it is arrived too early or too late in the game. So that's why I don't really like the idea of setting up a huge background with really established lore, because ultimately it's already happened. Like, that's not important anymore. Your character needs to blend in and fold in with the lore and be informed by the lore. That's where those touch points need to be. So don't develop a background too much. Just come in with your choices that are going to inform based on the world, and then let the lore of the world inform your choices moving forward. That way you're a living part of that world. Let's see. Vlad Tepes, thanks for tuning in. You feel like it's a modern trend to obsess over the exception and treat it as the rule, and it bleeds over into art and entertainment. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. In the context of Dungeons and Dragons, everyone wants to be that super heroic, rare version of a character that can do virtually anything. And yeah, that's super fun for a session or two. But the best characters one can play are the ones that are challenged more, where they can't always succeed in everything that they try to do, where they're not the most, sort of out of the box type character. I mean, the thing is, blending in helps a lot with gameplay. You can have spy missions that go infinitely better. You can have sort of intrigue and political drama if you want to go that route. Romance, if you want to try to touch on that in a game session, is infinitely easier if you have established norms and the players are within those boundaries. But if they're outside of it, then how are you supposed to even fold that into any established lore? Because you're breaking the lore by staying on the outside. Almost as if you're fully not even a part of the campaign and you're just placed in the middle of it. Hey, Adam, how you doing, man? You always believe in character building and teamwork during the campaigns? For sure. Hey, Engine Joe, how you doing? If you were to ask one of your characters what they knew of the heroes, your answer would be, at best, only rumors. A Kender's a man with gold skin from Abanasinia. That is all. I do like the idea of, you would genuinely not know anything outside of your village or maybe a 20-mile radius of wherever you were raised. There's no telephones or internet or cell phones or anything like that. And most people don't travel until they become adventurers. So your knowledge base is very isolated. You may only know about the agriculture of your area, your little town, and that's it because your parents were the ones traveling. You always have to kind of think that in context. So when players are always like, well, what do I know? Well, you don't know anything. You're a first level player playing character. You literally are just starting your career. So you don't know how to kill trolls. You don't know what the hell a draconian is. You don't know anything. And as long as you start from that point, then clearly you're set inside of the world and the lore can unfold through gameplay and become so much more fun and interesting. Okay. Principle number 2. Show the world through lived experience. The fastest way to communicate lore is through cultural habits, social rules, taboos, fear, and pride. So this is just what I'm talking about. When you're in your region, what are the cultural norms of that region? If it's during, right at the very beginning of the War of the Lance, maybe you're from Haven, and all you know are the Seeker gods. There's no such thing as dragons, and the old gods are all myths. The only gods that matter are the Seeker religion that is in totality authoritarian control of Haven, and you follow worshiping them because that's what everyone does, and that's what you believe to be a hardcore, firm fact. So the idea of traveling with your companions over the Eastwall Mountains or the Forbidden Mountains to Zaxxaroth is an insane notion on its own face. But then, once you're there, to find these discs of Mishakal and to have this revelation that everything you were taught your entire life is a lie. And this is the real truth. That is groundbreaking narrative storytelling, character arc type stuff that you can have so much fun with. Unless you're just like, okay, well, let's go dungeon delving and let's kill the dragon and let's grab the books and let's get back to the next plot point and so we can progress further. And what treasure did I get? I know there's some players who enjoy that type of stuff, and that's fine for them. For me, as a dungeon master, that kills me inside because that means the entire setting of the world means nothing to you. So why are you playing in this setting? A single custom can communicate more than a page of history. Why do the Sylvanesti dislike Quillinesty? If you don't know that going in and you're playing a Sylvanisty or a Quillisty elf, that creates a problem. And you should be informed about it by your dungeon master or by your own experience looking into your background of your race. But if the first Sylvanisty you run across, are you going to be glad-handing them and super happy with them? No, you're probably going to have biases. The first human you run across, are you going to be like embracing them? What's up, brother? No, you're probably going to be like, you caused the cataclysm. You suck. Like, you're going to have racial biases because that's all you know. And all of that is informed through the history of the world. Players learn a setting by surviving in it, not being told about it. So part of that is, even if you are a naive character and you're the Quillisty elf and you're walking over to Sylvanisty for some reason, you're like, hey, can I have some sugar? And do you have 2 eggs I can borrow? And they slam the door in your face. And you're like, wait a second, why did they do that? Like, I'm an elf too. And then, they can say, no, you're a traitor. You traitored our entire race by interbreeding and marrying other humans, or being okay with interbreeding. And you completely split our entire nation in 2. And you're part of the problem. You might as well be a human yourself. And they slam the door again. Like, informing them through the NPCs and through world interaction to them about how the biases exist is a wonderful way of teaching them about the lore. That way the player doesn't have to do exhaustive hours and hours of research before the game, and they can still play the character they want, but they're going to have to do a quick come to Fizzban moment when they start interacting with the world. And I've had that with Draconians in my campaigns, and Tieflings in my campaigns, and Kender in my campaigns, and every time people are like, whoa, record scratch, why are they being so rude to me? Because you're a Kender or a Tiefling or a Draconian. You are aberrant by your very nature. That's why the DM gave him a cursed spell book for him to use with a bang at the end. They also slammed the door because the price of eggs is high in Sylvanas. Yeah, but the speaker did say that the tariffs on Goodland will lower the prices of eggs, so everything should be fine. All right, players, let's see. The principle number 3, next one. Locations are characters. I'm going to say that one more time really quick. Locations are characters. Every meaningful location should have desires, fears, and internal tension. We have regions like this all over Dragonlance. Sylvanisty, every nation, Thorbarden, Solamnia, Ergoth, every single place you go, there is an established desire of the people there. There are cultural and regional fears of the people there. And there's internal tension of people there. And understanding how that will then extrapolate out to the greater world, or if you're just passing through it, is going to inform everything. Everything. And I did a whole video about coinage of Dragonlance in the War of the Lance. And it differs by region. And then that is going to be differing and informed by the character that's carrying that coinage into that region. So if you're a Hylar dwarf going into Thorbarden and you're going to be buying a pitcher of dwarven spirits, it's going to cost X. But if you're an elf and for some reason you walk into Thorbarden and you're going to be buying a pitcher of dwarven spirits, it's going to be more than X. Because 1, you're an outsider, and 2, you're an elf. So there's all sorts of reasons why pricing and interpersonal relationships are going to dramatically differ, and we have to lean into that because each location has its own personality that's built in. So always ask yourself these 3 questions. So I'm using Dragonlance in all these examples, but you can extrapolate this out to your own personal campaign world that you've set up and use all of these little tips and tricks to then build real depth to your campaign setting in every single region of it. So ask yourself 3 questions about any place in your campaign world. 1, what does the place want? Right? 2, what does it fear? And 3, where can it be pressured or changed? And those 3 things are going to inform how that location reacts to outsiders, or how people from that location are going to then behave in general to the outside world. So a location that does not react to player actions is not alive. So always think of locations as a character, and it will always be infinitely more interesting and engaging for actual characters. Let's see, just imagine a campaign realm and planes bleeding together. Your group then has to work to figure it out. Yeah. The Imperial League of Minotaurs. Yeah, up in Toledos. That's and they are actually really, really welcoming for the vast majority of people in the region, but there are like levels of citizenry. And you have rights based on who you are in that society. Not unlike our own in some ways, but it's much more sort of cordoned off in there. You're a tiefling. You're lucky Takesis doesn't use your body as a vessel. Yeah. So then elves look at the way they do because they aren't intermixed with humans. They went to war over it many times. Yep. All right. Principle number 4. Power shapes the world. Lore emerges from who holds power and who wants it. Now, this can be on as grand a scale as the War of the Lance, or it can be as tiny of a scale as, let's say, Solace in the War of the Lance with the High Theocrat, Hedrick, or Toad, the Fewmaster. Someone always wants power, and if they have power, they want more, and someone else wants to take it. So what's that power dynamic in your region of your world that the players are playing in? So lore emerges from that, but cities, kingdoms, temples, guilds, and cabals exist because someone benefits from them. And you can say, again, the grand scheme, is it the god that the cabal or the cult or the temple worships? Are they benefiting from it on that sort of macro sense? Well, of course, the perpetuation of its teachings and the spreading of its word. But on a micro sense, what about the High Acolyte? Do they exhibit power over those beneath them in an untoward manner? Are there sort of seneschals that want to usurp the acolyte and destabilize the church so that they can rise to prominence in a position of power and authority in the church? It's not going to involve the god, but it's going to involve politics within that dynamic, and players may stumble across it at some point. And that presents a really interesting sort of story beat for players to play off of. So you can always show power through who enforces laws, who is protected, who is punished, and who is ignored. These are really great ways of just letting players know without giving them a monologue about the dynamics of this particular region, the power dynamics. Players understand the world when they see how authority is applied in the world. So if you're running around murdering people and there's 0 consequences, well, then that lets them know that this is a world with no laws. But if you murder someone and the constable comes over and arrests you, well, now they understand instantly, well, there are laws and you just can't go around murdering people. It's important to use the world to inform the players. All right. Savanity Quality have their own circle of magic, not connected to Conclave. Gilthanas learn magic, but elves are held to a much tougher regimen. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that. You've always pictured Savanity elves as mostly dark hair and Quality is mostly blonde hair. That may be just in your head, though. I think that's pretty much how the artists have always historically interpreted them as well. You think the same way about elves? Yeah. All right, so Principle 5. We're almost through here. Factions drive motion. This should be just clear as day for Dragonlance, but it's something that you should think about in your own world building as well, in your own home campaigns, right? A world without active factions is static. Factions should pursue goals off screen, react to player interference, and clash with each other. You have the Dragon High Lord and the Dragon armies, and you have the Whitestone Council and all of their individual leaders. They all are a myriad of different factions. Their overarching goals are clashing together, but you also have them fighting internally. The Dragon High Lords, because evil feeds upon itself, and High Lords are trying to usurp the others and gain more power. And then you have the underlings of the High Lords trying to usurp them to gain the power of the High Lord. And then in the Whitestone Council, they're racially divided and they're constantly warring with each other. Even the Knights of Solamnia themselves are warring within each other within that one single faction. So good factions are defined by beliefs and methods, not by alignments. So the Knights of Solamnia are all supposed to be good, and yet they still war within themselves. The dragon armies are supposed to be ruled with an iron fist, and no one should be stepping on each other because you fear the punishments for having done so. And yet we have constant inner strife and struggles within the dragon armies as well. So just because a faction is of an alignment does not mean they are a monolith of that alignment, because there is minutia in alignment that you can lean into and play with. And that's fun and important for characters to not only witness, but also explore on their own. So just always remember that conflict creates story even when the players are not present. So the world should be in active motion, regardless of the players' actions. There should be like wheels turning. In the one that I'm running right now, the Tyranny of Dragons campaign, I've added this huge cult of Morrigan's influence and presence that has nothing to do with the adventure, but it's an active movement within the Dragonlance world 20 years after the death of Takhisis, because there's a vacuum of power. Chemish had tried it with Mina and the Beloved, and it ended up flying in his face. And now Morgan is stepping up, and he's trying to exert influence. You're going to have the Knights of Solamnia. They're having inner fighting. The nation of Solamnia is coming out, and the organization, the Knights of Solamnia, are always going to be in slight opposition to each other. I haven't finished reading those books yet, so I'm not entirely sure. But I know that is a lore story beat. And so even the Knights of Takhisis, the Dark Knights of Naraka, they have tons of factions, and I've leveraged a whole lot of them for the campaign. So there's just, all this is to say, there's no black and white. There's no clear-cut evidence, especially in the Tyranny of Dragons campaign that I'm going to be that I am running, is that you're going to have to align with people that you would normally never align with. And that's because there's something else that is connecting you. The enemy of my enemy is my friend type situation. How did Takhisis die? Can a god actually die? In Dragonlance, yeah. And in old school D&D, for sure. Like, they gave gods stats, and all old school players used to do was get their characters really high and challenge the gods. All right, so principle 6. Truth is fragmented and biased. Now look, there's an old axiom that I've always loved to use. Good is what you like, bad is what you don't like. Now that's very vague for a lot of people, and they can't handle it. They really like to have these rigid structures. No, well, clearly I'm on the side of good and everyone else is bad, but that's exactly what everyone else thinks. So I like to take this perspective in life that good is what you like and evil is what you don't like. And in the game, that's exactly how it is as well. Bad guys don't always think they're bad guys. Sometimes they do, but not always. And a very interesting bad guy is someone that's acting with conviction that they are not bad. Derek Crownguard did not think he was a bad guy. He really thought he was right and just in his positions. But he led his men to death. He was fracturing the entire order of knights so that they couldn't unified front stand up against the opposition. He was clearly acting as if he was evil, but he was not evil. And so it's important to keep that in mind. No NPC in your campaign at home should ever possess complete or objective truth, because their perspective should be influencing the truth. And again, that's informed by some earlier principles that I've already talked about, by where they come from, what their race is, how they're raised in that area, and what the political dynamic of that era was. Lore is shaped by perspective. Propaganda is a big one, ignorance, and self-interest. And all of that informs why you think you're good or if you embrace evil, why you claim to be evil. But again, not everyone's going to be the same way. And so it's really important to play into that so that people, when they're playing your campaign, are like, whoa, wait a second. I thought Derek was a good guy. Why is he trying to get us to go ride to our deaths against insurmountable odds? That doesn't seem like a logical thing to do. Why is he fighting against Lord Gunther Wistan? Like, shouldn't they be unified together and face the dragon army together? Contradictory accounts create mystery and engagement. So if you walk into a situation and one side is like, no, the Dark Knights came in and they completely upset the balance of harmony in Palanthas. They're running people out of town and they're creating a massive havoc. And then someone else is like, no, they came in and they got all the riffraff out and now it's orderly and peaceful and my business is booming. Like, we saw that in Dragons of Summer Flame, where some people actually were pretty content with the dragon armies taking control because they established order in an otherwise erratic and unorderly environment. And order means financial success and stability traditionally. So it really just depends on the person that's involved and how they're going to perceive it. But that's going to completely change the dynamic. So if you're in Palanthas as a hero and you're trying to defeat the Dark Knights, you don't have all of the population backing you. And that's really, really important. And all you have to do is look at our own real world politics to understand this dynamic. Not everyone who follows side A or side B sees themselves as bad. They always see themselves on the side of right. And when you're talking about right and wrong, it's always perspective. My old drill sergeant used to say, he used to say, reality is 9/10 perspective. So yeah, there's like 1/10 of reality that you just can't argue with. The sun is going to rise and fall. Gravity exists. But everything else is pretty malleable depending on your perspective. And it's pretty crazy that that's the situation, but that's the world we live in. So why not add that to the game and make it super interesting? History should feel debated, not settled. That creates intrigue and interest, especially in a campaign world that otherwise is just bland. So let's bring in interest in stuff like that. So the Goof, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in, man. All right, so let's see. Principle number 7. This is the last one I wanted to go over. Environmental storytelling is king. Ruins, scars, monuments, banners, songs, and relics all tell stories. This is part and parcel of Dragonlance 101, but it can be part and parcel of your home campaigns too. So I'm developing a Direlands campaign setting, and I've got original music created for it because I want there to be an established tone for the campaign setting. I've got poetry written for it because I want the world to feel established and real. I've got cultures all with their own versions of history because I want it to feel in depth and with age. You should be doing the same thing on your own campaigns, but that also means that you're going to have relics of ancient cultures. Dragonlance is perfect for this because they do this all the time. When the dwarves came from Taladas down to Anslon and they founded their first Calthax or Cold Forge, a lot of those locations they settled in were old Irda kingdoms that were abandoned, and they just took them over. And in some cases they built it all new, but even Thorbarden used to be an old the good dragons home. Like, that's where they kept all their eggs. That's their den. And Thorbarden was just sort of built out from it. And so having world that with ruins of evidenced conflict in the past or cultures that are no longer around gives it a lived-in feel and makes the environment come to life around you. Let players infer meanings from these locations rather than receiving confirmation about it. So if they run across an old Huldra-folk sort of, let's just say, a stone circle, well, do they know about the Huldra-folk? Probably not. So what is this stone circle? Does it have to do with fairies? I don't know. Does it have to do with Iretic cultures? I don't know. Who put these stones here? Let the players come up with their own answers, because one, they might come up with a really great story beat that's better than your own, or two, they might come up with an idea that later when they're taught wrong or they're confirmed, they're going to feel either incredibly like connected to the lore, or they're going to feel like they're becoming connected to the lore. Mystery invites exploration. And really, that's what it comes down to. When you're looking at any sort of established world, and we can use Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings films as a perfect example, and you see statues that are partially crumbled, or you're seeing like established like massive hills with these ruins on top of them, it feels inviting to go look around. I want to go see what those ruins are like on, up on that hill. Let's go check them out. And so you run up the hill and you go check them out, and you find a bunch of strange writing that you don't understand. Well, I wonder what that's about. Let's take a rubbing of this writing and let's take it over to a scholar up in Palanthas and let's have him, tell us if he recognizes it from any ancient culture. And maybe we discovered something that no one else has discovered before, or maybe there's an entrance to an underground dungeon that no one knew about. There's just so much that you can get just from interest, from just the natural world around you with the ruins or the scars. Chaos's footprint in the Age of Mortals. How did it get there? Where did it come from? Why does everyone call it Chaos's footprint? The lore, if you're aware of it, it's not Chaos's footprint, but that's what everyone calls it. So why? And why do people not come back when they go into it? Like, there's so much great wonder in Dragonlance and all these other campaign worlds. Make sure to include it in your own, because again, it's just going to add mystery and invite exploration, which is the point of the game. If players ask follow-up questions, that means the lore is working. So there are some practical tools for world and lore at the table, so you don't deliver those monologues. I want to go through a couple of those, and always keep in mind that any piece of lore should be deliverable in one sentence during play. Okay? So if someone comes across an NPC, and the NPC is like, I'm a knight of Solamnia. What are you doing here? And they're like, what's a knight of Solamnia? We are an ancient fraternal organization that has protected justice and peace since the dawn of time. Just one sentence. And suddenly it creates this whole string of an explanation for this order of knights that knew nothing about, but now you feel like you've got a firm grasp on. But it's still, okay, well, where did you come from? Vinus Solamnus founded the order after going on a mission and communing with the gods. Just one sentence, and it invites follow-up, which means the players are interested and they're getting pulled into the game. Additional detail comes later if they request it, but if they don't, leave it at that. It's totally fine. There was a statue of Morgian in the dungeon that I just ran through on Saturday, and the players are like, oh, we've got to do something about that statue. We have to destroy it. We have to desecrate it. Why is it here? Why are these ruins here? What is, it just made them want to interact with the world when it was just set dressing, but they didn't know that, and they wanted to learn more. They wanted to interact because it could mean something. All right, so the relevance test. Here's a couple things that I think the one sentence rule is the first little interesting note, a little tool you can use during the game to give lore without, ad nauseum delivering lore. The relevance test. Before sharing lore, ask, will this affect a player's decision in the next 10 minutes? If it's not going to affect their decision in the next 10 minutes, then it's probably not really germane to the moment or to the game. They can always learn about that later on their downtime. You can say, they can say they've been spending time at the Library of Ages and they researched whatever the topic was. Okay, well, now you know all the lore. But in game, just keep things at a comfortable pace that everyone is happy with, and just give them the lore that they need in the moment that's relevant to their actions, and then move along. Don't overburden them. It'll invite follow-up questions, but it won't bear down the gameplay. The next one is the 3-faction shortcut. For any region, have one faction that's in power, have one faction that wants power, and have one faction that benefits from chaos. You have a beautiful dynamic. The first two are at each other's throats, and the third is playing against each other. And it's the perfect balance for intrigue and interest and mystery and exploration and political maneuvering for all the players to get their fix wherever they fall in with all of that. This guarantees tension no matter where you are. And all you have to do is look anywhere in our real world or look anywhere in Dragonlance, and you're going to find those 3 factions in every region, no matter what. Put there intentionally and beautifully for player engagement. So do that in your home campaigns, and it'll do a wonderful way of propelling the adventure moving forward. All right, so the summary takeaway of all of this. World and lore are not about depth, they're about pressure. A good setting pushes back when players act. Great settings remember that pushback. So give the players what they ask for, only in pieces when they ask. And their actions are going to then fold that lore into their characters, which then folds it into the campaign world, which then folds it into the player's investment into the world that you're building. When lore becomes experiential, locations become reactive, and factions pursue goals independently. Your world stops being a backdrop and starts being a participant. It is so much more fun. Yes, it's more work as a dungeon master because you have to understand those dynamics or set them in motion at the beginning. But that's your job. And if you don't like that, you probably shouldn't be a dungeon master. But for players, that's what they're going to get off on. And that's how they're going to have a great time playing your games. That is when players stop asking, where are we? And start asking, what happens if we do this? And that's what we want as dungeon masters. All right. So, hidden pits are just old Kender settlements. Midden pits. They have all their stuff from other cultures. You don't think Kender leave anything, everything nailed down, goes to their pouches with them. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Derek was certainly ego-driven. It was personal piety masquerading as law. Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate you spend your afternoon with me here. That's it for this episode of Dungeon Mastering 101, World and Lore. Do you have any tips or tricks based on your experience as a dungeon master as it pertains to the world building and lore of your worlds? Was I off base in any of my suggestions? I'm a human. I can be wrong. I can accept that. Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, ring the bell, and click the like button. Ultimately, this lets other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel, its content. And of course, you can become a patron on Patreon or a YouTube member of this channel. That also helps me keep things going. Or just, you can pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate links in the description below. Thank you to creator patron Aaron Hardy, producer patron Azrael, and developer patron Chris Androu. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you'll join in that celebration. Thank you for watching. My name is Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.